Coming up in our newscast tonight. The first part of reunion for families separated by the Korean War wraps up today. Participants, mostly in their twilight years, bid tearful goodbye, knowing this could be the last time they see each other. South Korea is on high alert as Soulik approaches the peninsula. The Crisis Management Center is in full operation to minimize damages and casualties when the mid-sized typhoon directly hits the nation. Small business owners struggle to adjust after being dealt a heavy blow by the minimum wage hike. The government continues efforts to help alleviate the burden through measures like tax audit exemption. News Center begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, coming to you live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome to our program. I'm Daniel Choi. Once again, our starting point is the inter-Korean family reunions. Separated by the war and unable to see each other, much less learn if they're still alive, they're finally able to meet each other. The first of a two-part event wraps up today. We go straight to our Park Hee-jun, who has been following the story for us. Hee-jun, it went on for 3 days, but not nearly enough, with hours feeling like seconds for the participants.
Daniel, the reunion was a dream come true, but like you said, it was too tragically short for them to actually make up for the lost time of nearly 7 decades. It ended before they were even actually able to cherish and savor the moment of being back together. Now, on the very last day of the reunion, separated families had merely 3 hours to say their last goodbyes before having to part once more. During the last reunion at the resort on Mount Kumgang, some tried to contain their emotions and put on a smile so that the face their relatives remember isn't covered in tears. But it was to no avail. Even as the buses carrying the South Korean participants took off, their North Korean families chased after them until they were stopped by officials. Now, we can only imagine how these families feel now, being reunited after decades of waiting and then separated once again, holding only to the promise of meeting again somehow and somewhere, be it the southern or the northern side of the border. The South Korean participants returned to the Hana Resort in Sokcho in Gangwon-do province a few hours ago. I was able to meet them when they arrived, and they actually looked pretty cheerful and happy. They told reporters that they had a good time in North Korea. Take a listen.
이번엔 만족합니다. 모든 그 하나하나의 그 행사가 아주 질서정연하면서도 성의껏 참.
그리고 저기 우리 숙소에 그 식구만 와서 5시 그때 좋았지.
Although the time spent with their families was indeed too short, they generally appear to appreciate the fact that they were able to see their loved ones one last time and that they were able to see with their own eyes that they were alive and well all this time. We need to remember that these senior citizens are mostly aged over 80. This will most likely be their last face-to-face in their lifetime. Now, we still have the second session of the 21st Inter-Korean Family Reunion coming up on Friday, which will bring together a second batch of separated families. This time, 83 North Koreans will meet their relatives living south of the border. On Friday, families living in South Korea will gather at this resort before they head north. And it will surely be another emotional event too short in duration, but hopefully not too late. And I'll be keeping you with the latest on this story. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, thank you for keeping us updated on those, Hee-jun. We appreciate it. It was a teary-eyed scene as the families are forced apart again, and they would like to believe they would say, "Till we meet again," instead of farewells. But at the same time, many are hoping the seeds have been planted for more reunions in the future. Lee Ji-won zooms in on the highly emotional moments.
The last group session for the families torn apart by war was one that could not be watched without tears. 88-year-old Kim Byung-ho and his sister cried the moment they saw each other again. Kim's sister expressed her sorrow by singing a song for her brother. Families shared their deep regret at not being able to keep the family together.
동생 때문에 이 가슴이 맺혔습니다. 울지 못했다 여태까지. 너들을 만나고 요새 누구나니까 내 하나님 풀리는 것 같아.
3 days was surely not enough, but families did their best to use the last remaining 3 hours to bid farewell to their loved ones, whom they will probably never be able to see again. Families share childhood memories and decades-old stories like 82-year-old 배순이 and her sisters.
도라지 캐우고 더덕. 그래. 더덕을 캐면 우리 엄마가 그 더덕을 이렇게 쭉쭉 올라가지고 쭉에서 양념 발라서 이렇게 고주됐잖아. 그래, 그게 얼마나 맛있냐. 그렇게 맛있겠지. 얼마나 맛있.
Many also took photos with their instant cameras to try and preserve this once-in-a-lifetime memory. Families also exchanged their addresses and personal information in case they ever end up on the same side of the border, and many also drew family trees to fill in the details of their families. There were also those wishing for each other's health and promising to meet again in the future.
이렇게 만나면 언제 또 만나겠습니까? 한 20년 더 살아야 통일된다면 만나겠는데.
But when it was finally time to go, it was impossible to hold back the tears. And like that, the nearly 200 South Koreans got on the bus back home after 12 unforgettable hours with their sons, daughters, brothers, and sisters of the North. 이지원, Arirang News.
Typhoon Soulik is approaching the Korean peninsula, and it's expected to affect the nation with heavy rain and strong winds as it passes through. Let's now turn to our Michelle Bach at the Weather Center for what to expect. Michelle, what's the status of this force of nature headed our way?
Daniel, the nation needs to prepare thoroughly. Now, currently, Soulik is passing to the southeast of Jeju Island while maintaining strength classified as medium. Now, it will pass Jeju at dawn and approach Jeollanam, the province, tomorrow afternoon, and eventually land over on west coast near the central region. And this typhoon will be the closest to Seoul metropolitan area between tomorrow night and Friday. Now, typhoon warnings are in effect for Jeju and the Southern Sea, now along with some strong wind advisory. Now, make sure to stay updated with the forecast since alerts are expected to intensify or expand as it inches closer to the peninsula. Now, Jeju and parts of the southern coast are getting rain already, and it'll start for the rest of the nation tomorrow. Now, the peak of the downpours will be from tonight until Friday morning, and bringing up to 500 millimeters over in the mountainous regions of Jeju, and more than 200 millimeters along the west coast, while Seoul will get up to 150 millimeters. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, Michelle, thank you for the vital info. Now, although Soulik is equivalent of a Category 2 hurricane, it differs from previous tropical storms mainly due to an enormous eye, a radius of maximum 380 kilometers, and within it, top wind speed of 43 meters per second. That's enough to make it hard for grown-ups to stand on their 2 feet. We have our Choi Si-young standing by in Mokpo Port in Jeollanam, province, to get a glimpse into what it looks like there close to Jeju-do Island. So, Si-young, what do you have for us at this point?
Well, Daniel, the strength of the typhoon is yet to become visible. As of now, we're just getting a light drizzle. But as the saying goes, there's an unsettling calmness that seems to herald the imminent storm. The port looks calm, but residents told me that they all refrain from fishing activity because of the typhoon warning. The typhoon warning was also issued for Jeju-do Island and Jeollanam province. At 5 p.m. today, since then, all flights have been canceled at Jeju International Airport, which is about 140 flights as of now, both incoming and outgoing. Besides the typhoon warning, a high seas advisory has also been issued for the southern regions adjacent to the Western Sea. For Gyeongsangnam province, a strong wind advisory is in place. All regional governments are on a full 24-hour duty to respond quickly to any emergency and minimize casualties and damage. Jeju-do's governor urged residents not to take part in outdoor activities. The mayor of Daegu canceled his summer break and returned to office to attend to an emergency. Earlier on the same day, Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon presided over a meeting at the country's Disaster Control Center and called on the Safety Ministry, the Weather Agency, and other relevant ministries to be fully prepared ahead of the typhoon's arrival. We will keep you posted throughout the day. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, Si-young, we hope you and our team stay safe out there. We appreciate the report. The government is keeping an especially close eye on Soulik, the storm set to bring heavy thunderstorms and downpours as President Moon Jae-in and top officials in the nation on full alert. Shin Se-min has the latest from Cheongwade.
The presidential office said Wednesday that it's put its crisis management center in full operation as Typhoon Soulik heads towards the peninsula. The top office said the center has been in operation since Tuesday, just a day after President Moon Jae-in had ordered total preparation to minimize potential damage and casualties. According to the South Korean weather agency, Soulik, classified as a mid-sized typhoon, had already passed through the waters off southern Japan by late Tuesday and is packing strong winds with its maximum wind speeds reaching 155 kilometers an hour. And the crisis management team, led by the presidential security advisor and the head of the National Security Office, Chung Eui-yong, is keeping the president in the loop in real time on the progress of the typhoon and countermeasures. President Moon even called off a meeting Wednesday with the heads of 17 local government chiefs as he wanted them to stay put and make sure their regions are totally ready. And Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon is doing the same, getting members of the government to take all necessary precautions by checking on facilities like farms and fisheries. He's put all government officials on high alert until the typhoon has completely passed by the peninsula and told them to focus their efforts on preventing casualties. And with the storm looking like it's going to sweep all the way from the southern part of the peninsula to North Korea's Mount Kumgang, where the inter-Korean family reunions are being held this week, the presidential office says it's also looking over some of the safety measures there. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
The South Korean government plans to inspect a Russian cargo ship now anchored in a local port. The vessel is owned by a Russian entity that allegedly helped North Korea with its illicit activities, clearly violating international sanctions. Hwang Ho-jun has the full story.
A full inspection of the vessel, including its shipping records. Whether South Korea detains the Russian cargo ship will be determined after Seoul confirms whether or not it was involved in illicit activities, such as trading with North Korea, which would be a violation of international sanctions. The Sevastopol has been in the port of Busan since last Tuesday, according to official documents, for, quote, repair purposes. The ship belongs to the Russian company Gov't Shipping, which is one of the two Vladivostok-based companies that were hit by new U.S. sanctions on Tuesday for allegedly being involved in ship-to-ship transfers of oil products to the north. The U.S. hasn't tried yet to get the ship sanctioned by the UN, but if it decides to, and succeeds, then the Korean government will automatically be obliged to detain the Sevastopol. The ship has entered the southeastern cities of Pohang and Busan at least 11 times this year, but until the latest entry, the U.S. had reportedly raised no concerns. According to an anonymous South Korean government official, Seoul is in close consultations with the U.S. about how to handle the issue. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Commander of UNC and U.S. Forces Korea held his first press conference in Seoul since taking up the post in 2016. General Vincent Brooks touched on various issues linked to the changing security situation involving the Allies and North Korea. Park Ji-won shares with us his remarks.
General Vincent Brooks, the commander of United Nations Command, Combined Forces Command, and U.S. Forces Korea, says the last 28 months since he took office here have been a roller coaster ride ranging from points of tension to reconciliation. Yet during that time, diplomatic engagement was able to take root on the Korean peninsula. He said although distrust and misperception are still dominant factors on the peninsula, steps to build trust and ease tensions are taking place.
Closing of guard posts is a good example of a tension-reducing measure that can also help to build some degree of trust.
South and North Korea agreed last month to close about 10 guard posts along the DMZ as a pilot program. And Brooks said despite some degree of risk involved, it's not an excessive risk to the South's defense. The commander also said the recent repatriation of U.S. war remains by the North was an important step in building mutual trust, and he hoped such cooperation with the North will continue.
I do think that it was one effective step in building trust, where that which had been committed to was fulfilled through action. It was delivered.
Regarding the Trump administration's decision to suspend joint military exercises between Seoul and Washington, the commander said the U.S. and the South found other ways to maintain military readiness. He added while the North has begun to take big steps toward peace, actions on denuclearization must follow, and until then, the international pressure needs to continue.
While I do seek to have empathy to understand why North Korea is doing what it's doing and where it's coming from, nevertheless, this is a condition that North Korea created for itself, and North Korea, therefore, is the one that must take risk in order to move in the direction. The potential for a successful outcome through earnest commitment by all parties involved, if they can work through these same factors of distrust and misperception, is relatively high. And as a result, I think there is cause for cautious optimism.
Regarding the transfer of the operational control of forces in wartime, he said now is not the time to make the change, although progress is being made towards the necessary conditions for it. He also stressed the ROK-US alliance will endure well beyond the present time, and as of now, there are no instructions about a change in the forces' posture. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Let us shift our focus to government efforts to support small business owners now who are especially affected by the sharp spike in minimum wage. Various measures are being devised, including tax breaks to help them cope with extra labor costs. For details, let's turn to our Kim Ji-yeon.
The measures laid out by the government on Wednesday that'll take effect starting next year provide financial support equivalent to over $6 billion, around $2 billion more than this year. To lessen the burden stemming from the minimum wage hikes, the government says it's expanding the Job Stabilization Fund to small businesses with 5 employees or less from the current $116 to $134. The government also says it'll change the threshold for small businesses. They'll be exempt from paying value-added taxes in full. The threshold will rise to $27,000 of annual sales from the current $21,500. It says it'll expand tax credits, a program that gives tax refunds to low-income households under the Earned Income Tax Credit Scheme, from the current $357.8 million to $1.2 billion. New recipients in 2019 will be eligible for a 50% discount on their health insurance fees, while this year's recipients will receive a 30% discount next year. The government will provide 10% tax credits on monthly housing rent for diligent small business owners with a composite income of less than $54,000. They're also eligible for a 15% tax credit for their medical and education expenses for a maximum of 3 years. The package also includes a cut in credit card commissions and special loans of less than 1% for small online business owners and private taxi drivers. The government also laid out measures to protect franchisees from franchise headquarters engaging in unfair business practices. It also gives groups of small businesses the right to recommend a member to be nominated for the minimum wage committee to reflect their views on minimum wage increases. The government plans to submit related bills during the August parliamentary session. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Over at the National Assembly, lawmakers met with ministers to review last year's spending. Subject to harsh debate today was the government's so-called income-led growth policies, which include the minimum wage hike. Kim Min-ji has the highlights from that session.
Rival lawmakers clashed Wednesday over the government's economic policies as they continue to review last year's spending in a comprehensive Q&A session with government ministers. During the Budget Committee meeting, the ruling Democratic Party of Korea said the administration's income-led growth policies like the minimum wage hike will be able to change the country's economic paradigm to one that's focused on the people. As for the poor job growth figures for July, the party said that the minimum wage hike cannot be the sole reason, adding that the current situation is a result of the previous conservative government failing to carry out structural reforms. But the main opposition Liberty Korea party wouldn't budge. They said that given there are no major internal or external risk factors at the moment, and considering the fairly robust economies of the country's trading partners, the recent employment shock is a result of the government's failed policies. And the party said that the government is sending mixed signals as it tries to pursue income-led growth and innovative growth at the same time, instead of putting the focus on one. The government, for its part, said that income-led growth should go hand-in-hand with innovative growth strategies to achieve sustainable growth, even if it's hard to see tangible results in the short run. Rival lawmakers also took up the controversial special activity funds, money given out to officials and agencies for certain expenses that don't have to be reported. The finance minister said currently 19 government ministries receive the funds. A number of them, he said, are working to do away with the payments next year, in line with the National Assembly's own efforts to that end. He added that in next year's budget, there will be a significant cut to the special activity funds for the prosecution and police when it comes to their investigation work. From Thursday, the National Assembly will hold more specific Q&A sessions, starting with ministries related to the economy. Lawmakers will be checking whether the ministries implemented their allotted budgets according to plan and whether there was any waste or redundancy. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
South Korea continues to struggle with low birth rate. Despite various government measures, the situation did not improve, even reaching a record low in 2017. Still this year, there are no encouraging signs. Ko Ryuni help us look beyond the numbers.
Despite the government's efforts to tackle the country's low birth rate, the number of newborns in Korea last year hit a record low. According to Statistics Korea on Wednesday, around 358,000 babies were born in 2017, which is down 11.9% from the previous year. This is the lowest since related figures were first compiled in 1970. The total fertility rate, or the average number of babies a woman is predicted to have in her lifetime, dropped to 1.05 last year, also marking another record low. This figure is down from 1.17 the year before. Based on the 2016 data, South Korea's total fertility rate was the lowest out of 36 OECD member countries. The average birth rate of OECD countries stood at 1.68 in 2016. And the latest figures show the problem is grim for this year too. There were just 26,400 births in June, which is down 1,500 from the previous month. In the first 6 months of the year, the number of births fell by almost 9% on year, to record its lowest figures since 1981. Meanwhile, the South Korean government announced last month it would allocate an extra $800 million of next year's budget to tackle this chronic problem. The government has been encouraging families to have more babies by offering incentives, including cash rewards, but nothing has stopped the decline. Ko Ryuni, Arirang News.
South Korea's Asian Games Golden Harvest continues. On day 4, the national team maintained their third spot in the medal standings. Here's Ho Bin with the highlights and what to look out for over in Indonesia.
South Korea has been continuing to add to its medal haul. South Korean cyclist Na captured gold in the women's road event on Wednesday. This is South Korea's first cycling gold medal at the Asian Games. In the women's 25-meter pistol final, South Korean shooter Kim Min-jung came in third place with 29 points to take bronze. In fencing, the South Korea men's epee team also took bronze after losing to China in the semifinals 41-45. It would have been the Koreans' fourth straight Asian Games title. Greco-Roman wrestler Ryu Han-soo successfully defended his Asian Games title on Tuesday, earning a gold medal in the men's 67-kilogram contest. Ryu defeated his opponent from Kazakhstan by 5-4 to win his second Asian Games gold medal. He has said that his ultimate goal is to win gold at the upcoming 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Swimming stars Kim Se-young and An Se-hyun won silver and bronze respectively on Tuesday. An will now compete for another medal in the women's 200-meter butterfly final on Wednesday. The unified rowing team booked their place in the men's rowing lightweight 8 finals after coming in third place in the playoff match between 5 countries. Coming up later in the day, the major games of the day for South Korea are the swimming women's 200-meter butterfly final at 8:35 p.m. Korean time and wrestling men's Greco-Roman 77kg final at 9:12 p.m. Korean time. 서보빈, 아리랑 뉴스.
Hello, Michelle Park here with the latest weather update. It's going to be rainy all day nationwide. In fact, the same wet conditions apply for Tokyo tomorrow as well. And as Typhoon Soulik moves up north with the high heat, it's made things very steamy. Now, Seoul will start the morning at 27 degrees Celsius, while Daegu and Gyeongju starts at 26 and 25 degrees. By the afternoon, the highs for Seoul will reach up to 32 degrees and slightly lower for the southern regions with some strong rain and blustery winds. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
This is where we have to wrap things up. If you're here in Korea, do pay close attention to updates or alerts related to Typhoon Soulik. Thank you for watching.